Right before the presentation of my research plan, I found an early 20th century travel poster, which you all might have seen by now. And on it was displayed an advertisement for a flight to the town of Babel. And not like Babel from Genesis, but B-A-B-B-L-E, as in speech. From there, things got even stranger. During a visit from the local flea market a few weeks later, I found these diskettes for sale, these which are laying on the table there, entitled "The Song of the Architect," and I knew that was more than a coincidence. Trying to run the software on modern hardware, I got only a fraction of the game working, but what I saw gave me more questions than answers. The story it told was hauntingly similar to the research process up till so far, as if an allegory for my research, and it encompassed all kinds of previously found artifacts and played out in the same town of Babel. So let's run it, shall we? So this is the town of Babel in Vitruvia, but it's a gloomy shell of its former authenticity. The layout of the town resembles different phases of the research. For example, we have the Portsmouth, which is the trading hub, but also where all the tiles and glassware are sold. Then you have the Rotterdam, the industrial quarter, which creates all these materials. We have the tower itself, fallen in ruin and disrepair, and we'll get to go over the next ones later. So 10 weeks at sea, and the town of Babel is visible from over the horizon. Much like the protagonist in our story, I set out to answer the question of what it would mean to design by one uniform language, and how we can rethink the human voice as an expressive architectural tool in the age of artificial intelligence. With that, asking questions like how do differences in cultural expression affect this architectural identity, and how do phonetics play a role in that? I've therefore spent a lot of attention on the characteristics of the vowel sound specifically. The E, the A, that sort of. So along the way, there were multiple sources that served as an inspiration and examples. And these come back in this story as characters, as locations, as routing, and the general aesthetics of what you see right here. For example, Portsmouth, the town's trading hub for these ceramics and glassware, masterfully crafted through enigmatic methods, represents the truchet tiles, some sort of interlocking pattern that can also serve as a sort of code, a visual code. So I researched on how sound can create architecture, but also the other way around. And this is kind of a complex diagram, but the way I approach this, because all these factors play a role in it, but the way I approach this is sometimes taking sections of these and making sense of the research in each phase as a different segment. So isolating one or two or three of these blocks at the same time. Okay. So that was my research in a nutshell. We now have to interrupt this presentation by a short commercial break. This is the wrong one.
The aesthetometer, the next tool every designer needs. Have a deadline coming up? Worried about your superior criticizing everything to the ground? Well, fret no more. The aesthetometer is the answer. The next state-of-the-art technology will drive your design from the dark ages into the Renaissance. It will speed up your performance tenfold and will make you promote your wife and kids as satisfying man. The aesthetometer
I guess these fictional architectural tools initially symbolize the coming loss of authenticity with that new technology that brings. Much like our current age, generative AI is showing lots of potential, but also bringing the need to adapt to our current way of working with the architectural tools. In The Song of the Architect, the protagonist discovered a way of appropriating this given tool. We will now cross a boundary with this fictional tool into real life for this project. So what I did is I took it to the botanical garden, which I had selected for my design location. And specifically this field, which is as a round character, it's near the entrance. And again, blending with this fictional story, bringing the Hofstede into the site, the Hortus Botanicus. We try to analyze this through the lens of this archaic technology, like this new tool we have to wield. So, where the Hofstede was good at translating the architecture into like harmonies that represented these volumes, I wanted to do it the other way around, of course, because I wanted to make harmonies and translate them into architecture. So the Hofstede was a tool that could analyze this, but what I myself looking was to translate the other way around. This is why I created the aforementioned software prototype called ArchiTracker that could interpret the phonetics of speech. Luckily, by this time, I was very familiar with the acoustic measurement of vowels. Well, in short, every vowel has a series of resonating frequencies, which you see at the middle bottom. And extracting the first two so-called formants, that's the first two intensities of frequency, I was able to put them on a 2D spectrum, which we see on the right, and we see basically over the course of this diagram, we see the line changing. So what we see at the top left is the E sound, which has a high formant 2 and a low formant 1. The sound, the sound, or A sound. And by managing to sing or speak, you can design the architecture. So now for the structure I had in mind for this project was a pavilion that served as an auditorium and a performative space with the purpose of studying this phenomenon. Borrowing from the other sources of inspiration, I tried different arrangement of shifting in scale of tessellation for the grid structure, but ended up in a square layout. After a bit of shifting in scale, I found an appropriate grid size, 250 millimeters, or 2 meters and 5 centimeters. Here you see me trying this in the botanical garden. So we see the grid size, it's still a bit fine. I'm trying to make it more coarse in bigger scale. And the next step was to trim the boundaries to arrange the walls. I chose for a specific dynamic system, and I will now explain in a bit why. So we come back to the town of Babel, which we visited like these different quarters. We're standing on top of the tower right now, and we've looked down into the botanical garden, or the hidden garden. And then it came to actually making the sounds and translating them into architecture. But for that, I needed to know the key player in this story. And that was by means of my design. I found a way to tie the story together. So bear with me. It turns out this mysterious key to the story of cultivation of some sort was the story of the cultivation of some sort of organism by means of vocal propagation. Finally, I found the pivotal matter that was literally and figuratively fueled by the architectural design project. The key player, vocifera in solitum, or the uncommon songbird. Or in Dutch we would say maybe stemkroos. Or for Frisians among us, skrienbal. It was through the production of this special mythical algae that the town thrived and was built upon. This water-based plant, which miraculously grows in the presence of song, proved to be an immense biofuel. It made the citadel rise out of the ground back in the day, which the people turned into a tool. Over time, derivative families of this vocifera were created, specialized to power clay kilns or ovens for glass production. In doing this, the uncommon songbird became common, and Voce Vera was lost. It was therefore my task to make a pavilion in the garden that could study algae and their reaction to voice. So continuing where we left off in the Hortus Botanicus, I talked about these cells that had a dynamic character. My plan was that the building blocks of this pavilion would be these big acrylic pipes that could hold water for algae to grow in. I had done some research on photobioreactors, or PBR facades, and algae need three main things to grow healthily. First thing is sunlight and warmth, which, are followed by the nutrients like CO2, which needs to be fueled into the pipes, and other minerals. And of course, sufficient water circulation. So I shaped these cells to be round and to receive all day long sunlight. Every cell consists out of 21 to 28 vertical pipes supplied with CO2 at the bottom, with water and other nutrients from the top, and can be harvested through a system of pipes that runs underneath the floors. The pipes are held together by columns, between which flanges and braces are attached, and some of the columns have hinges to serve as doors for the bottom floor in the dynamic structure. The tops of the pipes can be carved in different heights, as you see here, to accommodate for a static expression, but also there is able to be a dynamic expression, which is shaped by the water of the over time. And the supply of gases are the quick reaction to the sounds perceived in the pavilion. For example, an E sound may trigger a different set of pipes to be fed than an A sound. But just like Hofstedeography, which I've baptized as my, the method of translating this voice into architecture, is not a one-way translation. The pavilion, in turn, can also be used as an instrument, acoustically synthesizing vowel and consonant sounds like an organ. Now we'll follow a demonstration of how the different vowels may trigger different pipes in the pavilion. Very loud. So what happens is different parts of the pavilion are triggered to be fueled with water and with CO2 over the different traversing of the vowels over the spectrum. And I just realized I hadn't really introduced the layout and structure of my architecture yet, so I will do that now. So here we see the bottom floor, the base floor of the pavilion, which you can also see now in the model. And I'll turn it around for people to see the section of the model, which will also be shown digitally. So, the entrance, which is when we came by the path, we walked into here and we looked at the little site where the pavilion was to be built. We see the entrance, we can climb up the stairs, and we are immediately greeted with multiple ways we can go in a direction. There are the doors that can open and close along these rails over the grades. And so these parts of the building serve as a dynamic structure that can basically have an open situation and a closed situation. And right now we see that the doors are open and we can visit the main hall above this base entrance. We also have sanitary facilities, and we can go up this, and alongside these different halls around it can be hosted exhibitions or different smaller types of performances you would see more in a foyer of a venue. So this is the view when you first come in. This is the view from the same door, and immediately we're invited to go upstairs to this bigger part of the pavilion, this more open part. We have the exhibition on the left, and the grates, which you see now from close, have this concentric circle structure with these spokes coming out. And I thought this was a really expressive way that I could show the underneath the pipes running through, which you don't see in this picture, but you can see in the before details. And on top of the heightened ceiling at the entrance of the foyer, you see these round shapes, which only confirm the bigger shape language of this whole pavilion, which is of course the vertical cylinder with the round section and the different carvings which you see on the second floor, which we'll go to now. So here we see an extreme perspective of the top view to express this vertical movement, to express this vertical pipe, this bigger, larger cell structure, and then the smaller pipes which are wedged in or lodged in between these braces. We see the audience platforms leading up to the balcony. That's what you see here. And both of the staircases turn actually into the audience platforms, so you can like go upstairs to see to get to the different levels. And furthermore, there is the top right, and we see the podium, which is around here, which we see a better view of in the next slide. And behind them there is the backstage, which actually has a little cantilever going to the northeast. So this is the balcony view. There are multiple things that I can highlight, such as the podium, which I highlighted before, the audience platforms, with also the main pipe that holds together the spiral staircase that turns into a railing and comes into a column. Yeah, so the roof is also visible from here. It's with these triangular patterns in the glass structure, which are actually a reference to this triangular triangular vowel schematics or vowel diagram. And on top of these roof windows, you have like this half moon shape, which can hold the rainwater for an extended amount of time, coloring, of course, green from all the algae growing in there, and refracting the light from the green algae also into the chamber. This is a different section to what of the model. This is actually diagonally through the model, which you see from left to right the backstage, the podium again, and the platform. And you see how also the bottom floor supports, in this case, the main floor, the main elevation. This is a view from the podium and the audience platforms, of course. And this is then from the audience platforms themselves. And I want to invite you to imagine this place being appropriated for different purposes. So you of course have the studying of the vowels and the way they translate into these difference in height of the pipes, of the water in the pipes. And then you have also more of a performative art, which we'll get to later. And also there's this more of this interactive artwork installation where one could like individually visit this pavilion and interact with the different objects on an occasion that wouldn't be a performance. Then the materials and the model we see now in big. I chose for the main floors and the podium to be a white kind of concrete layer, or maybe even tiles. For that would most best reflect the green light coming in from the outside. I think that's a very important thing to highlight in my project, is the way the algae can interact with the different materials that the light shines through on it. Then we have the columns, which are steel, and from a little different angle, we also see the braces and the pipes, the flanges, which can extract these algae from the pipes. Now we have a little time left to kind of demonstrate in a very abstract sense how this translation from voice to architecture would sound like. Therefore, I want to invite my choir to the front. So we have yeah, you'll see. Thank you for coming. Can you give us a G minor? Okay, here we go.
The song of the architect. It's the song of the architect. The song of the architect. It's the song of the architect. Now this research of mine is unfinished without. And this song I provide in this song of throughout. It's the vowels I say in this rhythm right here, and then without delay, architecture is here. The song of the architect. It's the song of the architect. The song of the architect. It's the song of the architect. It's the plants grown by voice. Could be song at the cure. The salvation rejoice. After years to endure. Labor of glass and stone. Ancient days now unknown. Propagated by air. Shining pipes green of glare. The song of the architect. It's the song of the architect. The song of the architect. It's the song of the architect.
With that, I would like to close my presentation. Thank you. We're ready for some questions.
Okay, normally I just say thank you for the presentation, which I will also say this time. But now I have to say thank you for the performance as well. Choir. A bit unexpected, but nice. Okay, but what will go before other questions, because there is no enough time for that. I ask you to ask me questions each. I'm ready for the group. We have your questions.
Yes. Thanks, Max, for sharing what is the world you created or you found actually, right? And, through you it's now communicated to us, and it results in many layers of architectures that you communicate today in many different scales also. But I would like to focus on the actual building that you created in the botanical gardens, and maybe to get a bit more information about what is this architecture all about, and then maybe from architect to architect about the shapes of this particular structure. I was wondering, you explained a couple of things, and it's of course this whole Hofstadian architecture is about sound, and this particular piece of architecture is also about algae growing in the botanical gardens. But could you maybe explain to us a bit more how this architecture of cylinders and circles is related to one or the other more particularly, or is there no difference between the two? In other words, if there is other architectures created of Hofstadian background,
Yeah.
are there always cylinders involved and circles involved?
I think it would involve a healthy amount of the tessellation, which I talked about, and I chose for this specific architecture a square tessellation, which is very efficient, of course. Maybe not for circles, that would be a hexagonal pattern. But then I touch upon also the maybe a hexagonal grid structure, or maybe a combination of both, that could create basically the grid structure of the architecture, but not necessarily would that mean that there would be differences in the translation of the voice. I think the method I found most viable is a kind of vertical extrusion constantly. So throughout the different vowels, or maybe also even consonants at some point, you could create this cross section, or a vertical or a horizontal cross section that could keep on expanding in the shapes that resemble the sounds. If that answers your question.
I think we'll probably need a little bit more conversation afterwards to find out. Looking forward to that. And the second question would be about what is other set of values that create the architecture, the instrument that you use to create together. Because what is, in my opinion, very typical for architecture too, is that we manipulate. And in this manipulation, we use a set of values ourselves, right? The things that you talk about is almost like this laboratory setting of Hofstadian values.
Yeah.
And then you put it over there, and then there are some environmental conditions that are, let's say, hostile to what the conditions you want to create, and some are really friendly, and then maybe we empower those that are friendly, and we can work out. That's what architecture manipulates a lot, most of the time in facades or in roofs or in. Could you explain a bit what is key condition or key situations in your project where you did one or two of these manipulations?
I think especially in the archetype of the auditorium kind of shape language, or architecture kind of typology is what the word I was looking for. You of course have the audience that goes upwards, and then the podium that is slightly raised. And by means of, I had this grid structure, and it was limited by the shape of which the context was, because it was a round context. I manipulated the edges to be this kind of square roundness, And then I extruded that into the air, but first I had like a very flat platform, but then I raised, and I wish I'd shown that in the presentation as well, was I raised different parts of this platform, this elevation into different heights to accommodate for this typology of the auditorium. And I think subconsciously, I kind of did that because just knowing and having visited multiple of these typologies, I would have that instinctively in my head. And the way the Hofstedeography manifests on that, and maybe kind of sometimes is hostile to that as well, can actually also be a strength in that regard.
Thank you. Thanks, Andre.
Okay, thank you all for your questions. Rufus, to you your questions.
Yes, well, thank you for the presentation and the performance. Actually, I have a lot of questions. This is a project that raises so many kind of questions, as it definitely also kind of creates almost like another worldly situation. And somehow I just have to think about kind of this song, Lost in Music. Only here perhaps it's lost in Max or lost in architecture, and that there is this kind of creating a narrative, and what you showed is in a way also getting lost in this, and in a very interesting and fascinating way. So it's I think also a way of creating that is somehow inspiring, but at the same time also raises a lot of these questions about how does this, or how does, for example, Babel resonates with the location in the Hortus Botanicus.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same moment you also kind of create a lot of technology. It's a theme. And how does this resonate with this thing of theoretically being built in the Hortus, and how, like in every kind of science fiction story, there is these representations of technology. There is also this message, and I'm really kind of looking for, or can you reflect on what would be your message somehow in the technology you introduces?
I think the main message of my present, my project, is that we have to guard and safeguard our authenticity through voice. There are all kinds of ways to synthesize and to kind of interact with this synthesis, but the main takeaway is that no one can take away your voice as a creative person. I think everyone has their own voice in that regard, and that's why I invited my choir to sing along with me, because it can create also this harmony. But I think it's easy to also get lost in where you're solely focused on your own vision, and I think I brought it home through this big collaboration of also the algae that was grown through one specific language. I think through means of collaborating and having the same kind of harmonious way of approaching architecture and creativity, I think that's the main point, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's a very interesting point you raise about authenticity. I'm slightly afraid for older people like me that cannot sing. What will happen with us? But I think that I really like this authenticity thing, and another thing that is present in your presentation. I think it's kind of the original Babel, like the real Genesis version story about also using technology as kind of to be, in a way, has a certain like human arrogance as opposed to the entire creation. But I think it also relates to a certain thing kind of that we now we call like a technological fix or a techno fix. In the song there is also the word salvation, and it's your kind of machine that saves us. At the same time, within architecture, there is this kind of there's these two sides. Perhaps there's the positivist side that well, science is great, and in the end we will be saved. On the other hand, there is perhaps the realist side, and at the same time, we are now dealing also with a crisis, climate crisis. How do you? Is there also? So you have the authenticity on one side, but is there also a relationship with this kind of, let's say, more the biblical part of the story, with your introduction of this machine-like structure?
I think you should also take the salvation, of course, with a grain of salt. It's it could also be interpreted as satire almost. But that's easy to say, of course. Oh, it's just satire. But I think there is some value in, of course, this authenticity and expressing yourself and aligning your vision through means of this vocal algorithm, algorithm also. And I think what really resonated at some point is what you said, like, could this also be applied to like real life? What's then the point if that's a thought that came up in my head was, okay, even though there's not such a thing as vocifera in solitum, is there a point to this? And that I would say algae are becoming a bigger and bigger source of food. I call it stem crows, eendekroos, like duckweed is also becoming a new hype, super hype superfood. But I think in the terms of that, we can also this pavilion studying algae in the Hortus Botanicus, the place where all kinds of plants except for algae are studied. I think that can also have a real impact on the current crisis we face. Hopefully a positive sense.
I think it's quite fascinating also that there is not kind of like a really direct answer to this, and there is perhaps even this irony in your futuristic retrofishing proposal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, sure.
Yes, thank you, Max. I've learned a lot from Max. I remember the very first meeting we had about the research, and I was impressed by how you could share your fascination with us. So I have two quick questions and one nasty question at the end. The quick question would be, based on our discussions and your presentation and the project, could you give us an idea about what is research for you in architecture?
Research, I really took the infrastructure of Explorer Lab as something really given during my project. I think the Explore part in Explorer Lab, and also the lab part, just exploring was really what my research entailed, and I think I kind of got lost in that as well. There was this kind of unbridled creativity where I kept on finding these new artifacts and was able to relate them to my research somehow. So this new kind of next tool that will save the way I was going. And
Maybe we're going to leave it at that because
Yeah.
we have another quick question.
Yes.
Otherwise we run out of time.
Quick question, after we designed your building or your pavilion, in one sentence, because otherwise the delegate will be nervous, we didn't really speak about space in your project, but what's the role of space, the architectural space?
space as in the abstract sense?
Build space.
Okay. I think I really took a digital approach here, and I think therefore the real experience of space is kind of fallen short maybe, but I think also the next maybe keeping it short and like a next kind of space would also be the digital space, and therefore I focused also on that during my research.
Thank you, Max. Imagine you would have two job offers now as an intern or as a junior, whatever. One from Google, from the artificial intelligence voice language lab, and the other one from Case County to join his office as an architect. What would you choose?
I think I would go for the architecture.
Okay, there's room for two questions, but the first one will be asked by me, and then the last question up to you. So you went for the last. For my question, I will play the role of a very grumpy city council. Because the city council has decided, or at least the mayor and the owner have decided to give you a grant of 100,000 euros to complete this building, which will otherwise not be possible. But it still has to get the approval of the city council. And there's a very grumpy city council, which is saying, this building is a bit funny, isn't it? Why didn't you just build a normal pavilion like other people do in parks? What's so special about it? And if you want it to be good for nature, have some solar panels on it. That's good for nature. You are still dependent on this current council, for instance, to get the 100,000 euros. What do you say?
My approach would be to really show where opportunities lie within such a challenge. And I think consistency throughout this project. So maybe instead of offering solar panels, maybe we can also create like a sedum like roof that maybe can be used as a garden for the community, or or maybe there are some other opportunities for the city council to have kind of this space to appropriate in this pavilion maybe, or to show that Delft is really the city where it's at. So I would really look for the opportunities, but not necessarily having to comply with these arbitrary solar panel rules or technological answers or like solutions, tech fixes. So I would go into conversations.
Okay, thank you. I promised the last question would be for you, so I have to keep my promise. Is there any question from the audience? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, first of all, thank you much for the amazing presentation. And I think that presentation is very authentic. You already said something in Frisian during the presentation, and it's absolutely not what you studied, but maybe I think you could give some insight in it. Because different languages use vowels differently. For instance, the I in English and ik in Dutch are already very differently.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you would have any idea how this would change the environment if you start talking another language because you use the vowels differently? When you're inside, for instance.
Yeah, so so the way the shape of the building would change
Yeah.
by means of this. I think the venue of the pavilion could host like different cultural nights, and depending on the inputs, because the inputs can also be all monitored and kind of trying to you can also adjust like the way the pipes react to different, for maybe tonal languages like Thai or Chinese, you could use maybe an algorithm that focuses more on these tonal shifts in like the I or the I, like that kind of way of translating. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting question. Thank you. Okay, that's all we have a lot of time for. The teachers will now go to another room, have a discussion on the results, and we will write with the results in about 10 minutes time. Thank you again.